What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video, I'm bringing you a Warlock build that can truly do it all. Ever since Final Shape, this has pretty much been my go-to all-everything build. If I just need a build to throw on and go into some unknown content, then this is what I use, as it can handle any situation that you throw at it. The build centers around the exotic chess piece Metiodoxia. It has the exotic perk Stylostixis. Damn, Bungie was really trolling content creators when they made this exotic. What are these words? Anyways, the perk states, targets damaged by Arcane Needle emit a suspending detonation when defeated, and landing multiple Arcane Needles on the same target immediately triggers a larger, more powerful detonation. Defeating suspended targets grants melee energy. Your Arcane Needles are strong against barrier champions. So this exotic alone can deal with barrier champions and unstoppables. Granted, to get the suspending burst on a single target, you do have to throw out all three of your melees, but even still, it can suspend single targets if need be. But the better way is to just mark a target and then kill it, which will suspend nearby enemies. Adding this in post-script, I didn't realize this, but I was getting footage for the build. Apparently it also has to be 3 back-to-back melees, so watch here. I throw out the unstoppable, 1, 2, and 3, it should suspend, but because I don't do like the 1, 2, 3 combo with the Arcane Needles, it seems it doesn't suspend even if you hit 3 in a row. It has to be in quick succession. So here's that 1, 2, 3 combo that I was talking about. You can see it does a suspending burst and then stuns the unstop, and then we can take them out. Suspend has always been a very powerful verb as it makes enemies sitting ducks who can't attack you. So this exotic has incredible utility. And with how often you can spam abilities with Transcendence active, you can suspend a ton of enemies. And your Arcane Needle can also pierce barrier shields, meaning you can stun barrier champions. Sadly, much like Lament, it seems that the barrier needles don't pierce all shields. This is most notable on Hydra shields, and it's quite annoying because I think it should pierce any shield in the game. Regardless, the effect is quite strong if you can land your melee, but that is no guarantee. Sadly, I have often thrown out my melee and it doesn't pierce a shield, even though that is the enemy I'm aiming at. This is really bad because barrier champs can regen their health if they aren't interrupted. And even if you do land your needle, sometimes it just won't break the barrier shield. I hate that this is the case because I know it's just the exotic not working as intended, but it is just bad Bungie quality control. Regardless, I still do love this exotic, but I did want to highlight that it does not always work for you. And as someone who solos GMs, this has literally caused me to die before because the game just didn't work like it should. It's infuriating. But the fact that you can solo GMs with this setup is a testament to the strength of the build. I also used it to run Garden of Salvation for my red borders every week, and it's awesome in there. It's just a super versatile build. So let's look at the rest of it. For the super, you can run whatever you like, but Song of Flame is basically the best super in the game. Check out my video that I recently made detailing why it's so good. For class ability, I like Healing Rift, but Phoenix Dive is great as well. Then, of course, we run Arcane Needles, and for grenades, it's up to you. You can run Healing for survivability, Storm Grenades for the utility of Jolt, or Vortex Grenades for the utility of applying Weaken as long as you run Facet of Dominance. You don't have to run Facet of Dominance, but if you need Weaken or Jolt, then this is the route I would go. Plus, Dominance also works with your Transcendence Grenade, so it's just a great fragment. But before we look at the rest of the fragments, let's look at the aspects. I of course run Feed the Void, as this will give us Devour, helping us stay alive, as well as providing grenade energy as we slay out. Devour is just so strong, and it allows us to chuck grenades like crazy. For the other aspect, I personally love Hellion, but if you wanted utility to deal with overloads, then you could run Bleak Watcher. For the fragments, I mentioned to run Dominance if you need it, but my usual go-to consists of the following. Facet of Dawn for a 20% weapon damage bonus with Radiant, as well as giving our weapons anti-barrier rounds. Next, I like Facet of Balance, where rapidly defeating enemies with light damage grants melee energy, and rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Obviously, this allows us to spam even more abilities, and it keeps our ability uptime high on our melees, which is what this build is all about. Facet of Devotion gives extra light transcendence when killing enemies affected by darkness debuffs. This build suspends lots of enemies, so this fragment is perfect for that. Not to mention our Arcane Needles also unravel targets, and if you run Bleak Watcher over Hellion, then you will get even more use out of this one. Facet of Sacrifice will give you bonus Darkness Transcendence energy when you have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, and you will have Devour up pretty much constantly. And Facet of Hope gives you quicker class ability cooldowns when you have an Elemental buff. And since we basically always have Devour with this build, the uptime on this is huge, and if you run Hellion, you will get tons of Hellions thanks to this. So if you do want to run Facet of Dominance, then just sub out Sacrifice, Devotion, or Hope. It is all loadout dependent. If you have more light weapons, then you can get rid of Devotion, and if you have darkness weapons, get rid of Sacrifice. And if you have Bleak Watcher instead of Hellion, you can just get rid of Hope. The choice is yours. As for weapons, because you can deal with barriers and unstops with your melees, and overloads if you decide to run Bleak Watcher, then you can run literally whatever you like. Adding this in post-script, but I really like running this build with Choir of One because Choir of One is pretty much the best exotic in the game, and it's super versatile. And then Tinasha's Mastery with Chill Clip allows you to deal with Unstoppables and Overloads, and then your Mataidoxian Needles can deal with Barrier. So basically, this loadout is like an all-everything loadout, and then I like to run Edge Transit with Envious and Bait and Switch because you can load a ton of grenades with Envious, especially because this is a double special loadout. And then, yeah, you can also run Void Siphon being Harmonic Siphon if you're running Nova Bomb, and Stasis Siphon if you had like a 3-cost mod on the helmet. But I just have a minor one, so I could even just run Void Siphon here. But yeah, that is an option you can go, and it's very, very strong. Like I said, this is basically an all-everything type of build. Monte Carlo would juice this build up even more as it gives you tons of melee charges, or even a legendary weapon with Pugilist. But as a rule, just use whatever weapons are juiced thanks to the artifact. I am making this build before the artifact mods have been released, so just use whatever you think is best. But one thing I recommend is having a balance of light and dark. The goal is to get Transcendence as often as possible with this build. By now we know Transcendence is broken as hell, but it's even better with this build because as you spam your melees, you'll be suspending a ton of enemies. And like I said, if you have Dominance, you'll also be weakening enemies with your grenade, so it's just incredibly strong. And let me tell you, this build builds Transcendence insanely quickly. So your whole gameplay loop is basically to chuck out a melee which will mark a target as well as unravel it, then you kill the marked enemy and a bunch of enemies will get suspended, then just slay out and before you know it you have Transcendence and then you spam abilities, and then just rinse and repeat. It's so good and so powerful. And let me just say, when this exotic was previewed, a bunch of people on Reddit and Twitter and shit were calling this exotic crap before they even played with it. It drives me nuts. Stop doing this. Wait till you can play with something and test it out before judging it. This is genuinely one of the best Warlock exotics in the game for endgame thanks to its utility, and it's also one of the best looking exotics we have. Huge props to the designers on this one. As for mods, Siphon mods and Heavy Ammo Finder are good on the helmet, Momentum Transfer, Impact Induction, and Focusing Strike are great on your gloves for feeding into your abilities. The chest piece, just run resistances that match the threats of the activity. Legs, probably go with Innervation and Invigoration and Distribution for ability energy on orb pickup, or you can go with a Scavenger mod to match your heavy or special weapon. And for class ability, Bomber and Outreach, and then just whatever you like. I quite like Reaper, as you can cast your Rift to proc Hellion, and then just get a weapon kill to make an orb. For stats, you want 100 Resilience obviously, and then just as high of Discipline and Strength as you can get. None of the armor on my Warlock is very strength focused, so I have high Resil, Recovery, and Discipline, and even with low strength, I find I can spam my melees a lot with this build. If you can, always just use your melee when you have 3 charges and then let it refund. On screen now is the cooldowns for your melee abilities, and you can see that they charge faster the more melees you have. Your melee recharges slowest when you're out, and then faster with 1 charge, and even faster with 2 charges. But by building your build this way, it doesn't even matter too much, because like I said, this build builds Transcendence super quickly, so then you never really have to worry about your cooldowns anyways. You just try and get Transcendence, and then pop it and spam as much as possible, and then when you run out, you just build Transcendence up again and rinse and repeat. The build pretty much just does the work for you. As I mentioned earlier, we don't know the artifact mods, but this is more of an evergreen build that works in any type of content. So if stuff applies, then just throw it on. This build is nasty without any artifact mods and will only be further enhanced by ones that synergize with it. For weapons, again, it doesn't really matter, just try to have light and dark to get Transcendence as fast as possible. Lost Signal or VS Velocity Baton is great for this, and Attrition Orbs on VS Velocity Baton will juice this build even further. But again, just run what you need to counter champions. And lastly, here's my sick drip for this build featuring some armor from the Salvation's Edge raid. I just think this exotic is clean as hell. But anyways, that's about it. I've been wanting to make this build since back in like August, so I'm glad I finally got around to it. I hope you liked it, and if you did, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching if you're still here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Hey, if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. If you like what I do and you want to support me further, then consider becoming a channel member. You'll get your name featured on the end screen, custom badges, and other cool rewards. You can also join my community Discord if that interests you, and if you want to see me stream, be sure to follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7 where I stream semi-regularly. Those are linked in the description. Anyways, that's enough self-promotion. Thanks for watching. Take care.